Hi, welcome to Radio Sensation. I'm your host, Dan. When I first started thinking about doing these YouTube videos, one of the things that I wanted to do was most of my collection is in storage right now. I'm currently in a home that doesn't have quite enough space for me to have my stuff out. So, my idea was that I would go to the storage, grab a box, bring it back here, go through it, kind of like an unboxing. I know most unboxing videos are for some new product that everyone's hot to see, but this would be an unboxing of things that I would just go like, oh, look at this cool thing that I have in my collection. And I do have some good things in there. And, it would give me a chance to look through, also to see if there was something I wanted to get rid of because I need to par down. And what happens is if you need to par down, like I have several times over the years, and you don't have time to do it correctly, you get rid of things and then go like, why? Or you think, oh, I have 2 copies of this, I can get rid of this one, and then bada bing, bada boom, you've messed yourself up. So anyway, this is kind of going to be along those lines. But what this is my sister was helping my mother clear out the attic at my old home, and she came across a grocery bag full of old comics. And so she goes, well, these must be Dan's. He's the guy who was into comics. Now, I had actually gotten rid of most of my childhood comics before I left home, but I thought I had taken everything with me that I had left when I left. So, when she talked about this, I was like, oh, well, let me see what it is. I'd be very interested. So I'm going to go through them with you. I'll talk a little bit about them. Okay? Let's see if that's any fun or not. Okay, so let's start looking through them. Got them grouped roughly together. Half-heartedly look through them here. I'll start off, there were a bunch of loose covers in here. These probably just fell off the comics from being read so much. I wasn't a big fan of the cowboy comics. I had liked cowboy TV shows when I was a kid, but I wasn't really into cowboy comics. I'm not sure where these came from. I'm not sure where some of these came from. I might have got them really cheap at a yard sale, or somebody might have given them to us. Sometimes people would just give me comics that they didn't want anymore because they knew I liked comics a lot. So there's that. Now, I wanted to keep these two separate there for a second. So there's Two Gun Kid, Rawhide Kid, Two Gun Kid. I think those were probably the two most popular of the. I did like Severin's artwork, John Severin's art for the comics, and of course Kirby did some too. So, and these two were off my comics though, because I was a big fan of Mike Ploog's Werewolf by Night. Werewolves are some of my favorite monsters. These comics were okay. They tried to straddle the horror and superhero, kind of keep it in the Marvel wheelhouse. But they did some interesting stuff with it. And like I said, I really liked his artwork. And so these probably just fell off my comic from being read so much. And now here's some comics where the cover either wore off, or what would happen is sometimes back in the day when the newsstand was where most comics came from, if a comic didn't sell, the new issue comes out, what the newsstand would do is they'd tear off the cover and they'd give those back to the distributor, and they would get credit for them because they hadn't sold them. It wasn't worth everyone's time and effort and the cost of shipping them back to return comics that didn't sell. And so the cover was stripped off and they were supposed to destroy the comics. Now, what would happen is, in my area, it was a big thing to go to the stores and you would find 3 comics with their covers torn off and you could buy them for the price of 1 comic. And of course, the publisher was being cut out of this deal, and distributor too. But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, oh, you know, I think I thought they were just damaged. And so like, oh, they're selling because the covers fell off. And so I would buy these bags, and you couldn't, they were put so you could only see what the top comic was. And they would always put Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or Fantastic Four, almost always those, because kids knew what those were. And then you would get any other BS in the bag. I mean, really, it was pretty crazy. Here's a Jerry Lewis comic. Now, when I was really little, I liked Jerry Lewis movies. And then at some point, I outgrew them. It's funny because I outgrew Jerry Lewis's antics, but not the Three Stooges. But I had a couple of these comics. I would occasionally buy them, especially when there's weird, for some reason, I never got to go to summer camp. But there was one where there's a summer camp that's run like a Nazi prison camp. And I guess because I kind of liked Hogan's Heroes, I also thought these were hilarious for some reason. I think this probably, I wonder if this led to Jerry wanting to do The Day the Clown Cried movie. And here's one where a monster at the drive-in, thanks to this scientific array, the monster at the drive-in pops out of the screen and attacks everybody. Boop. A Son of Satan comic. I never would have bought that myself. I don't remember this comic at all. I'm really not sure about some of these comics. I really don't know that they were mine. I don't know if somebody else left some there or someone gave them to me. They might have given them to my mother or someone to pass on to me. But, you know, I never would have read this. Now, it could have been one of those 3 bags, and I just never bothered to read it. And so it's been sitting around, but yeah. And there's, what comic is this? I don't think this was, it's an Issue of Fear comic. Starring Morbius, who famously has his own movie now. Yeah, I don't remember this one at all either. It looks like he goes to the future and meets an eyeball guy. Oh, he meets a lot of mutants. Wild. Okay. Man Thing, which, I wonder if they meant to draw a regular human hand. There. I don't remember him having a human hand. Oh, I guess they meant to, because there it is again. That must be some plot point there. Now, the Man Thing was a weird comic. It was another one with the monster that does super heroic things and basically fights other monsters, which I like. I would have preferred it if 2 evil monsters fight each other. That's better to me than having a monster being heroic, but that's just my own. Well, this one's got some nice creepy visuals. A Scooby-Doo comic. I definitely wouldn't have bought this. I watched Scooby-Doo. I used to watch Scooby-Doo with my daughters. When I was a kid, I hated Scooby-Doo because the monster always turned out to be a fake in the end. I hated that. A Tarzan comic. Wow. That is not good art. Not good art at all. Now I liked Joe Kubert's art. What kind of? Oh, this is a Tarzan Kubert. Doesn't look like he's doing much Tarzan stuff. Ooh, there he is fighting a lion. But you gotta like that. You know, I used to watch the Tarzan movies on Sunday mornings. And there were only really a handful of them that I really liked. I loved I think is it The Return of Tarzan? Which one is it to where it ends when they're going through a cave and iguanas are swimming through the water and attacking people, and there's all kinds of craziness going on. Here's one of those supposed horror comics that has no horror in it. Oh, this is the cover of it. Ghostly Tales. Yeah. The Mars Patrol. I don't know what the heck that is. Star Spangled War Stories. I didn't really like dogfights in comics, and Cooper did a lot of those. Enemy Ace, that was his big. Not really. I mean, that's great. He draws these things great. Much better than... You see him in a lot of comics, and they just look... There's nothing to him. He draws them great, but I'm just not that crazy about him. There's Aquaman. You know, the thing is with superheroes, the only thing I was really interested in is... when I was a kid, I liked SpiderMan and I liked Fantastic Four. And those were pretty much it. Oh, I liked Thor. I liked when Kirby was doing the Thor. I liked those Tales of Asgard. But a lot of the other stuff I didn't bother to read as far as superheroes go. Now, here, where's all this? So, at some point, like I said, I liked Werewolf by Night because of Plug's artwork. And werewolves are my favorite. At some point, I was at somebody's yard sale. Somebody had this stack of the Monster of Frankenstein, which I didn't buy at the time because I didn't have the money to spend on it, and it seemed like a ripoff of the Swamp Thing, and it kind of is. There's definitely some issues that are total ripoffs of Swamp Thing. The Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing stories, those early ones with Len Wein. And there's issues of this that are like 3 or 4 years later that are total ripoffs of the exact stories. Again, I like Monsters vs. Monsters. They make the monster... first they do a retelling of the original Frankenstein. But then they turn it into a monster versus monster kind of thing. Good Frankenstein monster versus the bad ones. And so, anyway, I got these for like, I don't know, $1 or something. There's a stack of them on this table at a yard sale. And I was like, oh, how much are those? This disinterested mother there is like, $1 for them all. And I think there was more than this, but I just remember this. Anyway, those are interesting. I might reread these. I have fond memories of those. There's another of the Jerry Lewis ones. Oh boy, the cartooning is not bad in it. It's kind of fun. This is an issue of Plop. This was after I had stopped buying it. But somehow I've ended up with this one. There's a Basil Wolverton. Who doesn't love Basil? The first issues of Plop were more like horror magazine. Oh, and there's a Wally Wood parody of Lord of the Rings. There's the dwarves. More like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. With Groucho and Harpo in there. And Snoopy. I don't know what all that means. But that's some funny cartoon in there. And there's Golem. Not bad. Yeah, it's like a little... Oh, and the big joke turns out to be that really Gandalf wanted the ring all the time because he was a bad guy. Here's an Atlas comic. Atlas... are one of those comic book companies that sprung up and tried to have a whole roster of heroes for you to buy every month right off the bat. That never works out. And it didn't here either. This is one of them, the Cougar. About a stuntman who solves crimes and stuff. Now here's a couple of Well, this is Yang is kind of like a ripoff of the kung fu craze. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, the comic was popular. This has actually got as much. It takes some from Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, but it also takes from the Kung Fu TV show. And this issue has our Kung Fu hero fighting a Bigfoot who turns out he's really just a misunderstood guy. The bad guy has tricked him into the bad guy's evil daughter who tries to kill the hero one minute and then wants to make out with him the next. And so they become friends by the end of the thing. It's not a bad cover, though. Here's a Boris Karloff. I loved Boris Karloff as an actor. I love monster stuff. These, the Gold Key, they had good covers. But, I took this as an example of, here's one of the stories promising a monster. He sees pictures of the monster in this painting here. He has to go to this netherworld to save his brother who's dying because of some curse. He sees the monster sitting there and meditating. It starts to get up to attack him, breathes a little fire, and he kills it. That's it. That's your monster for that story. And then that's a great monster there. It's about an alien that's come to Earth, and there's a good the monster's not really evil, and a good alien is trying to save him, but the good alien gets killed, and the poor creature gets shot. Well, all thanks to the crazy redneck sheriff. And then this one has a big buildup about a monster in an Egyptian tomb. You see it coming here. Rawr! They run outside, and as soon as it steps outside, turns to ash. That's your monster action for that story. Disappointing. Now this one's kind of interesting. There are actually, and I don't think of Weird Mysteries as usually having good monsters. They usually have, ghosts, which I don't like. They have horror hosts, which I'm not crazy about. I can like the way horror hosts are drawn, especially the ones for Warren publications and the EC publications. But overall, I'm not. I don't really like horror hosts. This one has vampire bats swooping down and killing people, and it has some really. That's pretty horrific, pretty good. It's got a twist ending that doesn't do anything for me, but hey. And then the rest. Then there's a couple stories about domestic comeuppance, and then this story at the end about the werewolf is very reminiscent of an EC werewolf story that unfortunately I couldn't find find and look up what the title of that one was, but that's a fun one. Nice werewolf story. And then this House of Secrets, there's ghosts, but that's it. This sorcery comic, Red Circle Comics Group. This might be the only one of their comics I've got. There's no monsters at all in this horror one. There's a little monster riding his back, but it's really his guilty conscience. I didn't flip through this one. I don't know if there's any monsters in it or not. And there's, oh yes, oh yeah, the Island of Crawling Flesh. Arthur Sudan, I think that's how you say his name. He's got really creepy artwork, and this is one of the first times I'd seen him, although I would later see him in Heavy Metal magazine. I think I might have seen, he might have done some humor one pages for National Lampoon, maybe? Maybe not, I can't remember. But look, this is really creepy stuff. Really good. But that's the only monsters, horrific stuff in that. This is an issue of Mad. This was after I stopped buying it because I was already buying Underground Comics and National Lampoon. So again, I'm not sure why I have this one. I mean, I still liked, some of the regulars. And, Mort Drucker. I used to love Mort Drucker. Oh, Stan Hart wrote this. He's the guy who wrote a lot of the Topps trading card series, like Wacky Packages. Yeah, Mort is really great. Now there's a lot of jokes per page in here. Many of them don't have much to do with the movie. I don't think that when they were writing this, they had a chance to really see the movie, or maybe they had seen it once and just made some vague notes. But Marathon Man, that was an interesting movie. Here's a Don Martin, and I do like Don Martin. I'm not sure, what's the gag there? Dave Berg, the usual gang of idiots. Issue of Black Magic. I did buy this because I saw it was Kirby. I was a Kirby fanatic, and so this one I did buy. Quite disappointed. No monster. The thing on the cover about the freak, it's some poor guy who's born with all kinds of birth defects and is hidden up in the attic, and that's it. That's not a monster. To be honest, after the debacle of Jack Kirby at DC, I wasn't really, all his. The thing about the DC stuff, like the New Gods and all those characters there, those were not easy for me to find on the newsstand. DC does not seem to do a very good job of getting those distributed. They canceled the titles pretty quick. And then Jack ended up going back to Marvel. There's some, he did some great stuff at DC. That's it's hard to believe that he could, it doesn't have that super nostalgic, me being 4 or 5 years old and seeing the Fantastic Four, but there's some tremendous stuff at DC. His return to Marvel, very hit and miss. Much more stuff that I'm kind of like, eh. But, I don't remember buying this. I might have got this, and there were also, after the end of the ones where they tore the covers off and returned them, they also did things where they had packs of comics with the covers on that some packager would get them. And I guess maybe the publisher got a cut of those. They might have been more legit. I certainly think the ones they were selling at Toys R Us and places like that were probably legit. But again, it was a way to get some cheap ones. I might have got this there. I didn't buy this. I had seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, and as a kid, I thought it was boring. I've since watched it again. I do realize that it just wasn't for me. This is a really look at that bizarre face there. Because it doesn't look like it looks like the helmet is form-fitting, and the faces of these aliens are just out in the atmosphere, and that the shape of those, it's just really bizarre. Man, look at the way the ads are in this. A lot of ads. So by this time I wasn't really following Kirby. I was reading almost no comics by the time these were coming out. The mid-'70s were pretty much where I stopped reading most comics. I was still reading the undergrounds at the time, and then in the 80s, there would be new stuff that would come along. Although there were always a couple things. I just wasn't paying attention anymore, so I didn't see them as often. The Avengers, this probably came out on one of those packs because I really didn't care about the Avengers very much. This is interesting artwork. George Perez. Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk about his work on different comics. That's not bad. I haven't really talked about very much about the, because there are artists in some of these comics that I haven't pointed them out just because the comics to me overall weren't interesting. Challengers of the Unknown. Again, I don't know how this fell into my hands. I have no idea. I did read some of them from the 60s. I don't really remember what their whole deal is. I guess they had some superpowers. This guy seems to. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is one of the greatest movies of all time. It had the Universal Monsters in it, which I loved. It has Abbott and Costello in it. There's a couple parts where Costello is a little annoying in that movie, but generally it works okay. They take the monsters seriously. I enjoy, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies, so blah. This comic is kind of not the greatest. The gags are Sherlock. Okay, let's read this one. Sherlock Costello, at it again. Oh, it's you, Bud Abbott. You're still wearing your long winter underwear. Wow, terrific, great. How did you deduce that? Elementary, my dear Abbott. You've forgotten to put on your pants. Punchline. Boom! Got you with that one. Oh, now, I gotta say that when I was a kid, you put a guy in a gorilla suit in something, and I'm gonna watch it. If I saw an ad for something, like I used to watch Perry Mason all the time as a kid, hoping to see the one where the gorilla is going berserk. Because in the ads for Perry Mason, they would always show the scene of a gorilla knocking furniture over and going berserk. I've never seen that episode. I'm sure it's not worth me tracking down at this point, but you know, that was fine. My mother liked Perry Mason. I thought it was a boring show. Again, I was a kid, but I wanted to see that gorilla. So there's some more of those. Another Jerry Lewis. Here's Yang. Some more Yang. Like I said, it's kind of a rip-off of here's the. This had the Komodo dragons in it. Kind of like this is kind of a rip-off of a Johnny Quest episode. Iron Fist. Again, not a fan. I'm not sure why I have this issue. That's not very good art. That absolutely doesn't look like someone crawling up the side of a mountain. Old Yeller. Yeah, again, I don't know where that came from. Who did the... Well, look at her face. Spider-Man and Daredevil. You know, I did like Spider-Man, but, you know... This is pretty much after I bowed out of reading it. It's a funny picture of Jameson hiding there. Another Avengers. Fast Willie Jackson. I don't recall ever seeing this on the newsstand. I don't know where the heck this came from. Fitzgerald periodicals. It definitely looks like Betty and Veronica artists. Yeah, some Archie stuff. And there he is, because, yeah, our young hero wanted to dress like a pimp. Richie Rich. I absolutely hated funny comics when I was a kid. There's, you know, I mean, these type of things here, always like Casper and all these. I really did not like them. It's really funny when, you know, some of the cartoonists who worked on what you might call the second wave of undergrounds, or the independents, or new wave comics as they called, or the Fantagraphics type thing. And they'll list, like the Hernandez brothers loved the Archie comics and stuff, but they also liked a lot of the weird humor comics. It's very funny read that someone you really admire likes something you thought was absolute junk. SpiderMan and Ghost Rider. Another Son of Satan. I don't know how these got in my mother's house, but I don't think most of these were mine. I really don't. Even some of the ones I thought I recalled, I don't think they really were. Metal Man, I never read that. Now there's a Fantastic Four, but it's long after I had stopped reading them. I mean, this is, probably 60, 70 issues after I had stopped reading them. I'm going to go through these, read some of them, and then get rid of most of them. I should probably throw them out because I'm allergic to mold. And some of these comics are definitely discolored and moldy. This looks like the kind of thing that a well-meaning relative might have bought me. Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I did like... Yeah, I like these old ones. I really like this kind of art. It reminded me of the old cartoons, which I did enjoy. So this is the stuff... the stories are kind of dumb. Oh, and there's... yeah. But the stories are kind of dumb, but I did like this, the cartoony here, the big, dumb, rubbery legs on the horses. Horses are hard to draw. I don't blame them for drawing this kind of big, rubbery legs. And then this one I definitely did buy. I had gotten totally into the paperback reprints of Doc Savage, so when they were doing this, I was like, okay, I'm down with that. Here's the thing is, I think the art's okay. It's an original story that's very close to the type of stories they were doing. But, something about it just didn't click. I don't know how many issues this made. They were obviously hoping to ride a wave of popularity for the movie that was coming out at the time. George Paul's movie, which was a big, big flop. I had liked Ron Ely from his Tarzan TV show. I thought he was an interesting actor to me. I thought he would have been okay at it. But this is just, I don't know what I was expecting. But it turns out to look, I guess it reminded me too much of a superhero comic. And by this time, I thought of those paperbacks when I imagined what was going on in those Doc Savage paperbacks. I was imagining it more the same way I would imagine paperbacks of like the men's adventure kind of things. Because I was also reading like The Punisher. Not The Punisher, dang. The Executioner, who was a ripoff of The Punisher. I was reading The Executioner, and, when I was reading the Doc Savage stuff, I would kind of imagine it to be as harsh, and even though some of the things were pretty fantastical, I would still imagine it kind of that way. So I was imagining something a little grittier, but this isn't bad. It just wasn't what I wanted at the time. And that was the big bag of comics that I got from my mom's house, courtesy of my sister. Thanks, Pam. And that's all for now. If anybody enjoyed this, let me know. Maybe I'll try something like it again. Thank you very much.